Alright, we're going to talk about how I paint the stucco into the eaves. Right now I'm actually mixing the material. It's a finessing of somewhere between 25% and sometimes as much as 30% water. You add to the material so that you can get it to brush and flow right into the stucco. Try a little bit and then try a little bit less water, a little bit more water. Start out with, I usually go about 20%, and then I start adding more and I check it. But after a while, you get to the point where you just kind of know exactly where to thin it to, so that it just flows right into the stucco and still has the ability to cover. That's the trick. Is when you, and also the technique of brushing and coming off the brush really light on the tips, so that the last stroke you dip it and then just go across that same area, and it actually just lays on the top of the surface and your brush doesn't pull anything back off. That's part of the technique there that you have to master. Unfortunately, this part of the video, it does get better than this. There's just a little section in here, I didn't want to remove it, that you can't really see what I'm doing. It's very hard for me to get my head in the right position and look underneath there so that I can get that camera so you guys can see it just right, especially when I can't see what you guys are seeing until after I get the video done. So anyway, so as you do this, what you do is you look around the stucco, you look for your spray misses, and go ahead and just give those a little whip with the brush. Get some material on there, let it kind of soak in, go behind the edges, go behind the roughness of the stucco, and sort of fill in so that you can see, that it gets the shadows of the area. So the biggest problem a lot of times when spraying this kind of dark color over a light color is getting those shadows to go away. If you notice when I'm spraying, I'm using a cross spraying technique. And when you do that, what's happening is, remember, the center of your fan is shooting straight at the wall. The upper part of your fan, when you're running your fan up and down, is spraying upward at an angle. The bottom of the fan is spraying downward at an angle, because it sprays from the tip down and from the tip up to those areas. So a lot of times you end up with shadows if you just spray one direction, and if you spray two different directions, you lose a little bit smaller tip than you might be using. Then what happens is you're able to get a much better coverage, and that's where you don't want to you spray at an angle at all. You want to spray straight at the wall. Your wrist should never break. If you watch me when I'm spraying, I'll be talking about that stuff in these segments of the next video. I'm actually taking the videos and putting them on the computer and then turning them into MPGs, because they come out as MOVs, and then I put them back on my phone so I can re-edit them. So the editing isn't that great, but it does help a little bit when you guys can hear what I'm, what I'm saying when I'm spraying, and I can narrate what I'm actually doing, so you can kind of get an idea when I'm spraying of what exactly it is I'm trying to do, and what's going on in my head a little bit, so that when you're spraying, you can master that technique of not covering and actually getting a really good spray job, and real even and real well covered, without having to do near as much covering as you may be used to doing. So anyway, I go through and I spray the eaves. If you watch the other video on this, you'll see that I'm spraying the eaves and I'm getting just a little bit on the stucco, and this is only on the gable sides. You'll notice that even on the parts where it's not a gable, where it's just straight and there's a starter board, I actually will still run through with the brush and very quickly just touch those up. But I do shield those areas because it is faster than just trying to brush the stucco. I've done it before when I just forgot shields and I just went through and just sprayed it on there, and it does take a little bit longer. So it is worth it to use those shields, and it is a little bit difficult of a a thing to learn, because holding a shield and spraying and then making sure you don't miss anything is a little bit harder than just spraying. So a lot of guys think that when they try this, they go, oh, well, I can't do that because when I spray, I don't want that shield in my hand and it messes me up. And you know what? It just, you get used to it. It's when you first start doing something, you're not going to know everything. You're not going to know how to do it the same way that I'm doing it all the time right here, and be able to go through and get it all perfect, with one shot. So when you watch my brushing technique, I'm actually backing the brush into the corner, so I'm pushing the brush down on the surface, and then I'm actually pushing the brush backwards up into the corner. And notice I'm only using a straight cut brush. No angle tip. You can use an angle tip if you want to, especially for this part right here, where you're getting up in that final corner up there. It might be a little bit easier, but I found that they don't hold near as much paint, especially when it's thin like this. It just is so much better if you use a 3-inch. I'm using a Chinex bristle Corona brush, and that's my favorite brush. If I have one, I don't always have them, but they do hold and release more paint than any other brush. The only disadvantage to them is when you're doing some of the real fine enamel work, you might find the brush stroke to be a little bit ropey. So it all depends on what you're trying to do. If you're doing real fine enamel work on a custom home, then you might want to switch to the Proform has a brush, and I don't know the name of it. It's a gold bristle, and that brush has a really nice, super fine brush stroke, and they work really well. So again, another part where the camera gets in the wrong place here. So again, the most important thing to learn is how to just set up that paint just right. I've had guys, they go, hey man, why don't you go touch up the stucco? And they take it and they go, it's not covering, it doesn't work. And I look at their paint and it's too thick. And then it kind of bridges, especially some of the materials out there with the cheap acrylics bridge more than others. And you'll have, when you spray your stucco, you're going to have issues no matter what. Like A100 from Sherwin-Williams is really a horrible product. It actually, even when it's thinned down, it bridges and it sprays terrible. It just doesn't work very well. So I've only used it a couple times, and when I used it once, I was like, nope, this product is completely garbage. And I just wouldn't use it again because it was like that Glidden Speed Coat from Home Depot, which is horrible too. Really, really cheap acrylics. It bridges a lot when you in other words, it kind of fills in things, which you don't really want paint to fill. You just want it to color. So you see here, this turns out pretty clean. There actually turns out just as good as if you mask it. I've done both, and nobody can tell the difference when I'm done. But the guys don't like doing it because of the brushing. The brushing technique up into the corners, like I said, you have to back the brush in on those little tails coming out of the wall. And I'm touching up some of the stucco right here. So, and if you look in the final video, you can see that there's no signs of any touch up on the wall because the paint is reduced about 25%, so it just kind of flows right in the cracks. It actually brushes really fast. If you look how fast I'm doing this, it really only takes, I had to do a little correction here. My guys had a different idea of where the stopping point should be for Eaves. I'm real picky about this. I like my stopping point on the gutter. I don't know if I did it right here or later on. But I like my stopping point to line up right with the fascia board. I don't like to use a seam on the gutter. I think that looks cheesy when you paint down to the seam because it doesn't match anything. I like the gutter to match straight into the fascia board. If it's not in this scene, you can actually see it at a different point in the video when I'm doing the final job walkthrough. because it was done then. And I just basically just changed that gutter point to the right place. Yeah, so you've noticed here on the straight parts, there's a few places that I get blowouts where I go underneath, like on the where it's going up there, where the right there where I'm painting right now. I'll just blow off of that because trying to double shield that's too hard. I do notice a little bit of brown that's not now quite far enough on the rafter or on the starter board there, and I'm sure I went around and touched that up, but I wasn't shielding this side, and one of the tricks to shielding is not putting the shield right up against the starter board. You want to put it up against the starter board and then back it down about 1/8 of an inch so the paint can kind of blow just underneath the starter board enough to kind of cover it up, and then you go back with your brush afterwards and you cut in a nice beautiful straight line. It's just, you know, it is a very fast way. There I am right there. I'm fixing up that gutter. Got a nice straight line going on. I paint down the gutter and get rid of that brown. I don't want that brown. I like that to be the wall color right up to the line of the fascia. I think that just looks better. And you have to make your own line when you do that, you know. So the guys like to use the line that's on the gutter, and I tell them, no, I want it straight with the fascia. It needs to be straight with the fascia. The other way, it just looks like, you know, you just miss something. It's not straight. So I'm working my way around here. At some point here, the video is going to change to a different scene. I don't know what I don't think I had, the guys needed a ladder right there. I think I was going to the other side. I was working on something else. And I remember doing that. I think you had to do a little bit of fascia, was that? I can't tell, but the video is very small. So, while I'm trying to watch it here, like you guys are, oh yeah, I was getting up on the patio cover, and I had to do the part underneath, and the guys took the ladder at that point. Then I had to come back. I was actually cutting off the video after that. So, up on the ladder, I'm up on the patio cover. Can reach the eaves, luckily. Don't even have to use the ladder up there. And just blowing her through that under edge. It doesn't take very long. It takes usually about an hour for one good painter to paint the stucco into the eave. And and you got to make sure if you put the eave color on with too much pressure, there's fine overspray that'll go down about 1 foot, and you have to really, you know, make sure you get it all. So I always make sure to keep the pressure really low, keep the material really thick. I'm not worried about if I get a finger under there too much, because you can't really see it. It's in such a small area, the eaves are. It's nothing to be concerned about. If you have a little bit of a finger edge, or you notice I'm spraying really, really close to those when I'm spraying those. So, you know, the chances of getting a finger or an edge or something in there is pretty high. But, you know, most people can't see it because it's so, you know, it's such a small area. Nobody goes under the eaves. They just want to see that the color is underneath there usually. Alright, so I know I'm expecting to get a lot of hate on this, but I'm going to explain this to you guys how it works. And a lot of people are thinking, oh my god, that takes way longer. You know, I've done whole houses, and generally, even for a 2-story house, we're talking about the most I think I've spent doing this is maybe an hour and a half. Now, I want you to think about how long it takes to mask off under the eaves. I don't know any crew, and I'm really, really, really fast at masking. I mean, I was in the automotive painting business before I got into doing houses, so everything has to be masked on a car. So when I was in as a production masker in a little body shop, you know, when you start doing that kind of thing and you're masking off 8-9 cars a day, you get very, very fast. So I'm very fast masking, and I don't think I could do one in less than 3 hours. So that's me. You know, I don't know exactly because I don't usually do it. Mask the eaves because it is so much faster this way. And most of the time when I'm moving out, I usually can do the whole house in less than an hour. I've done them in as long as an hour and a half. Usually it's about 30 minutes to 45 minutes to go around with the brush and clean it up. So you do the math. We're talking about 2 to 3 man hours. I mean, I don't know. Usually masking crews are 2 different people. Now, so then you add the masking, the tape and the paper, you know, 2 rolls of tape probably or so to do eaves, maybe 2.5 rolls. And, you know, so that's about, you know, $2.50 to $3 a roll. And then we're talking about, you know, a couple rolls of paper at, you know, a couple dollars each. So it may be as much as $20 to mask the eaves or more. And, you know, in the worst scenario, you go to mask all your eaves and it ends up being in the afternoon and the wind picks up and pulls off half your masking. Then you have to do it all again. So generally what I do is if I'm doing masking eaves, I'll have the guys start masking, and then not long far behind them, I want the guys spraying them so that, you know, that way you're not leaving yourself vulnerable. I have a friend of mine, he goes, oh, we don't start painting until everything's masked off. Well, then you wait till everything's masked off, and by then, well, gosh, everybody's going to need a lunch break, and then all of a sudden, you know, the wind blows off half your masking. You know, that's just dumb. You know, that's just not smart. It's better to get right into that paint. Get some of the masking done, do a little bit of painting. A little more masking, a little more painting. A little more masking, a little more painting, so that you're not leaving yourself vulnerable to that weather and the wind taking your masking back off if you're going to do it that way. But, you know, you might try this, and it'll take you a few times, like I said, to learn it. And once you learn it, you'll be like, oh my God, I'm never doing it the other way. This is so much faster. It just, you know, and especially when you're working by yourself and you don't have a masker, it really, you know, if you're a painter and you're a really good painter and you're really good with a brush, you're going to find this to be much easier and much faster than doing it the other way. So anyway, like I said, you know, we did have a guy there who could mask and he could do it. We had, you know, a couple guys for that, but we were starting the eaves too late in the day before, and you know, one of the guys had to leave early, have a doctor's appointment and stuff like that. So, you know, I just said, no, we're going to spray them. Like, they're all mad and upset, you know, and everything else, and I'm going to do it this way. And I said, well, that's all right. I'll cut them all in. It doesn't take me long, you know. And then I saw how long it took, and I forgot how long it took for that to happen, and it was done. So it really, you know, these 2 videos, they're about 18 minutes long. There's 2 segments to this, and pretty much, you know, are about 20 minutes long or something like that. I think it's 20 minutes long for this whole thing. And in basically 20 minutes, I've done the whole house, honestly. There was maybe 5 or 10 minutes after this, of a little, you know, 10-foot section in the front that he didn't have on video, and that was it. The whole thing's done. So, you know, on this house, it would have taken at minimum 2 to 3 hours to mask, and I did all the touch-up in a third of the time, and we used no material. Do the math. It's right. It is easier and faster if you have the proper man hours and the guys who can paint, who can do this, you know, touch up and do it fast. Setting up the paint is the key thing. Like I said, if you get it too thick, it's going to want to fight you. If it's too thin, it won't cover. You know, it's got to be just to that point where it's, you know, you pull the brush once, you go over it with the brush one direction, and you go back the other direction once, and it's completely covered. It just soaks down into the other stucco and covers everything up. A couple other things I'm going to tell you that doing it this method actually helps. And one of those things is when you're spraying, generally when you're spraying the wall, when you're spraying up near the eave, your spray gun, wants to hit that eave if you're going to spray it straight at the wall. So you're always spraying upward at an angle, the very last stroke of the spray. So as you go up to the eave, you're spraying upward at an angle. So if you stand back, sometimes you can actually see those shadows of the top of the stucco. This method of using the thin paint eliminates that angle, the top angle of the spray, and gets you better coverage. So you're solving that problem. The same time when you're going through and touching up this stucco, you're actually touching up all the wall areas. Right there, I'm actually just catching that corner that I couldn't blow off of because there's concrete on the other side of it. Everything else looks pretty covered. I'm actually stopping and looking at the walls. So you can imagine, I'm going through and doing those eaves. It only takes me, less than an hour to do all of them. And I've already done also the stucco touch-up at the same time, or most of it. And so you might have to might have to go around it twice, just because there might be a few little things that you have to catch after that. But so if you add that up, really you saved a good 2 to 3, 4 man hours or more. My guys, though, mask off this house, it'll take 2 of them about 3 hours, and that's a lot of man hours. That's 5 man hours. So that's actually, I was just thinking about that. That's about what it usually takes. I don't do it all the time. And I'm not always running those guys. That's the other guy there who's running them. So he knows about how many man hours it takes to mask that stucco. And it does take a lot of time. And it's, so like I said, a lot of guys are going to fight me on this. They're going to say, oh, no, that doesn't work as good. When I'm brushing that edge right there, that is straight. It is straight. It is clean. There's no... And see, there's a little bit of what you get on the straight sides. I forgot what I was going to say. When you're doing the straight side with the shield, what I'm doing right here is there's a little bit of blowout on either side of the shield, and a little bit blows underneath the shield. So it only takes just a 1-stroke cut. You go one direction, that's it, and then you're done. And then there's usually a little part where I go twice, where I'll have the where the edge of the shield was, and then blow off the edge of the shield just a little tiny bit. So you don't see any of that stuff that you are thinking you're going to see, because it's all touched up. So it doesn't take any time. People think it just takes way longer than it does. It doesn't take long. So anyway, we will continue here around the building. And again, on this wall, if you look at all the areas where I actually touch up the stucco, because while I'm up there, I'm touching up a pretty large area of stucco, maybe a 3-foot section. If you look at the completion video after we're done, again, I apologize for the view of the fascia there. But if you look at the finished video of the whole wall, you will find that there's no way to see an edge where we've touched up, because the paint's thin. It goes around, it just goes around and catches those shadows. It's actually the right way to do a stucco touch-up to get a really good result. And so anyway, I'm going to let you guys enjoy the rest of the video, and keep watching all those areas, all those things that I've done, and take a look. It's just a way to save man hours. Talk to you guys in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to watch the rest of this. You might see something that might help you out in your jobs.